All right, folks, welcome to another episode of Powerful Perspectives, where we bring you world changers, athletes, entrepreneurs, people doing big things in the world and making a huge difference. And today is no exception. When I tell you I got a treat for you today, you guys have no idea what you're in tune for today. I've got Mrs. Lillian Callaway of K&L Industries, mom to the world, like a second mother to me and to so many people that I know, and what a blessing she is to the world. And I can't wait to introduce you to her here in just a minute. So let's get started.
It is ultimately important for you to look at your goals, truly what you want to do in your life, and then look at the people who you spend the most time with in your life and figure out if that lines up.
All right. Well, I'm pretty excited to be here, and I can't even believe, I just want to go on the record and tell everybody that, like, I was talking to your husband one day, and I was like, I have to get her on the podcast. He said, I think you should just send her an invitation. And I said, well, that's what I'm going to do. And then I got back and accepted invitation. I said, well, this is going to be amazing. So, Mrs. Lillian Callaway, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And go on record, this is actually the first podcast I have ever agreed to do, by the way. I don't like to be in the front.
Well, I am honored that it is this podcast you chose to do, and I'm excited to be able to tell your story, your family's story. I just told Lillian before we got on here that I interviewed Mr. Callaway, Keith Callaway Sr., on Tuesday, and today we're recording on Thursday, so a couple days later. So I'm fresh in the mind of a lot of the stories from the other day, so this is going to be good. So, but let's start it off just like we start off all of these episodes. Why don't you tell the listeners and viewers just a little bit about little Lillian? What was it like growing up? How were your parents? Where were you raised? How were you raised? All those kinds of things.
Well, I am a true Oregonian. I was not born here, but I have been raised here my entire life. I am one of 8 kids. I'm the youngest girl, and I have 4 sisters and 3 brothers, and we're all still pretty close. Both of my parents are gone, but we're all here, and we still enjoy each other. We have a family text that we all text each other, and my parents were very good about creating a sense of belonging and the true sense of what family means and what caring for one another means. And that is actually something I have carried on through with our kids. In fact, Gabe, for Mother's Day, bought me a Storyworth subscription, which Storyworth is they send you a question every week and you answer it. So at the end of the year, you have a whole book of something about it. They're just questions that they want to ask. And I was just, the last question I answered was, what are some of your remembrances of your mom? And as I was writing it, of course, I was teary-eyed because she's been gone for 20 years now. And those things bring tears to your eyes, because I also realized that I am my mother. The things that were important to her and the things that she impressed upon the boys, or the kids, all of the kids, girls and boys, were all the things that I have worked very diligently impressing upon our kids. And so it was one of those circle of life moments that you realize, wow, it's not just that my mom comes out of my mouth, that I am her.
So cool. So cool. So you were pretty much raised in the same general area as where you are now, right?
Yes, I live 20 miles from the high school I went to, 25 from where I actually grew up, in the area I grew up in, and still have lifelong friends.
So what your life growing up, was it similar to what you see your kids experiencing? Because you also have a big family, right?
I do.
Everybody is pretty connected, and if you ever get the pleasure of going to the Callaway residence, you will see very oversized pots that Lillian cooked in, and everybody's always welcome at the Callaway house. Was it the same when you were growing up?
Very much so. In fact, one of my favorite memories of growing up is that our dining room table would seat about 25 to 30 people. And we never knew who was going to be there for the holidays because it was always open to all the neighbors or anyone who didn't have a place to go. And they knew that they could come there and have a seat at the table. In fact, we just ordered in our dining room, because we remodeled, we have 2 tables, but we've ordered a table that will seat 25 for our dining room. So that is a favorite memory of mine as growing up, and we do it now. And I never know who's going to be at the table for holidays.
I love it. I love it. And when you're there, you can experience it. You know, people coming and going, small groups for the church coming and going out of the house, right? All those kinds of things. And so if there was one thing that you remember most about your mother and then your father, what are your fondest memories of both of them?
Oh, you're going to try and make me cry here. I think the memory of my dad is that and this sounds horrible, but I can honestly say I don't ever remember my dad saying, "I love you," because that's something that generation didn't do. They weren't verbal. It wasn't masculine or thought of as a good parent if you were verbal in those manners. And because of his upbringing, it wasn't natural to do that. And so even though he never said it, I knew 1,000% that I was loved, that there is never any doubt that he would die for me. And in fact, that was as our marriage struggles were, some of the greatest struggles were the fact that Keith oftentimes felt like he was second to my dad, even though he wasn't. But it's just because I held such a high regard and a special relationship with him that there was just a bond that I had with him. And I also got the privilege of caring for both of my parents as they in their last days. Hard as it was, I would never trade it for the world. And anyone who has the opportunity, even if it would be a difficult opportunity, do it. The memories that I have that no one else has, because I was there in those moments of struggling, of caring for them. There's those tender, precious moments that you get in those times of truly caring for them that I would have never had they not been right next door to us and I could be there at every moment. So that was probably one of the special things with my dad. My earliest memory that I always go to is, to this day, I still love to look at lights. But I remember I was little enough that I could still stand on the seat while he was driving. So probably 2 or 3-ish, which we could do that when I was little. And we were on a road trip because every summer we went down to see his family in California. And there's a spot that you come to that you can overlook just the LA area and the lights. And it was late at night. Everyone else was asleep. And we always took road trips because we didn't have the money for flights. Stopped in the middle of the night. He got me out of the car, stood me on the hood of the car, and we just stood there and looked at the lights and talked about all the different colors and all those things. And that's still one of my favorite things to do, is I love to just sit and look at lights of cities, of cars, of all those things. With my mom, man, that's when I would probably cry because she was sick. So I had I had to remove myself emotionally as an adult to be able to take care of her. But as I thought about it recently, I love that she was free to laugh with us, that she was free to be silly. We didn't have to perform. She would do all the stupid things that we would do, running across the street or throwing clothes somewhere, just singing silly songs. She would participate in every one of those things. And to this day, I do that with my grandkids.
I was just going to say that, like, you definitely are still that person. Like, you have the youngest spirit of anybody I know. Like, you love to play with children. You love to laugh, have a good time. It's just, it's awesome to watch. And so when you were describing your mother, that was the thought before you said it, was like, and you definitely are her. And you have literally instilled all of those values into your own family, which is amazing. How
Yeah,
does
that's
that
what I
how does
realized.
that feel when you look at that? Because I think at this point in your life, you know, you're pretty proud of like
Mhm,
the family that you've raised. You know, some are
mhm.
younger, older. You know, you've got a wide range of ages, but all have become successful in their own way and are leaving their own mark on the world. How does that feel to be able to look at that from the outside and look at all of them individually and know how you've passed all that along?
Well, it truly is only by the grace of God. It is not it is not anything that Keith or I have done. It's the fact that we were faithful to him, and because of that faithfulness, our kids could see that it wasn't about us, that we were not the rock, or the unchanging factor, because people change all the time. It was really that, that they know who the rock of our belief is and where our values and morals and everything come from, and to look at that. I mean, I actually told Keith this for NPE, because we did a company retreat before, and standing in the back of the room, I just leaned next to him and I said, who would have thought that 39 years later, we would be flying 30 plus people across the country to do a retreat for a company that was our company, that we started just to raise our family, just to feed our kids, just to make ends meet. But we were faithful in the little, and God has been faithful to us through these days. So am I proud of it? Absolutely, because it hasn't been easy. But would I trade anything? Absolutely not. Regardless of the wars of addiction, of the battles, of the sibling issues, there are going to be those in every bit of everyone's family. But we've fought through it and we've remained consistent and faithful to God, and He's been faithful to us.
And it gets me to hear you say that, because I I feel a lot of the same in my own walk, you know, like in my
Mhm.
own faithfulness, and like watching this world unfold in front of me, you know, and like and watching that happen for you guys, and then watching like it just
Mhm.
continues to like blossom and grow. And you know, the relationships that you guys have with your people, it's like it literally is
Mhm.
like one big giant family, and I know how much that means to you guys. um, let's talk a little bit about, as I want to jump into the business side, since that was the transition there. First, what the company motto of K&L, let's talk about that for a minute. Transforming lives one shovel at a time. Let's talk about where that came from and what it means to you.
Where it came from was just a business meeting of the three of us, Keith Jr., Keith Sr., and I, and the fact that what is important to us. Yes, it's important. It's important to have money, obviously, to raise your family, to make ends meet. But what really makes us tick is knowing that I'm loving others. I guess I should say me, actually, all of us, that we're loving others the way that God loves us, that we try to love people with no boundaries. It doesn't mean we're stupid, because I am very hard on some lines, but we try to openly love them and know that people make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. And it came, the whole thing, we're second chance employers. Um, and part of that is because of Keith Jr., because it was hard. It was hard being a mom, and I'll probably tear up. Um, it was hard walking those days, um, watching your son wither away and feel like he's worthless. And nobody's worthless. Everybody is worth something, because God thought enough of you to bring you onto this earth, and you deserve to be loved. And not everybody has that opportunity to truly be loved and cared for and accepted. And that alone is the one thing that I think makes our company stand out, because I do love every single one of our employees as if they're my own kid, and I talk to them the same way. If they do something stupid, they know they've done something stupid. Don't cross my lines. And I will call them out and they will stay here until we work it out. But I think that's part of it, is that we learned the stamina it takes to walk those paths, and that not everybody has that stamina because they haven't seen the other side. And there's always hope on the other side, but you have to have people that remind you of that. And so much of this world is just a throwaway world. If you're not going to meet my needs right now, I just don't need you. I don't want you. Well, yeah. Do we feel that way oftentimes? Absolutely. Because we don't have the time of day to waste time, which is part of the reason why I'm so straightforward. I don't have the time to waste on trying to wordsmith words and get everything around just perfectly. I need to get to the point, deal with it, and move on, because there's too much in this world that we have to deal with. And so that's how it really came about, is really mostly seeing the need and the fact that construction workers are not thought of highly. They're not thought of as this is a valuable career, and that you can raise your family on it, and that you can make a living, and you are worthy, because it is. Every career we have, I've always told my kids, I don't care if you are the janitor at a school, as long as you're doing your ability to the best of your ability and treating people well, I am proud of you, regardless of the dollar amount that you make. And so that's what really struck the Transforming Lives, because sometimes we get a little guff from our salespeople because they want it to talk about asphalt or construction, but it's a two-way road. We all have crap to shovel out of our lives.
Yeah.
And yes, I might be making your life better by putting some asphalt in it, but it's more about making my employees' lives better because they see something of value in themselves and there's something to be proud of. So that's where that comes from.
I love it. And question about the process of working through everything with Keith Jr. And so, that struggle, how often do you think today of the people that you interact with, the employees on your team, like the different things that they do, the different challenges that they face, how well do you think that process of working through that with your son really prepared you for what you deal with today? Right? Because when you look at, like, I can't help but think when you say, I flew 30 people across the country to this retreat, like, man, there's a lot of stuff that goes along with that, right? And so, there's a lot of adversity and a lot of challenge. And if you hadn't gone through that with Keith Jr., would it be the same? I'm interested to get your perspective on that.
It would be different. I would be much more timid, but I've learned, especially with people who have paths that aren't the best, who haven't had someone behind them teaching them that this is how you treat people. You don't have to get mad at people just because of this. Put yourself in someone else's shoes, because most of the time the situations that have happened are because no one's told them they're valuable and that you don't have to treat people this way. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. They're like, no one told me I shouldn't treat my wife this way, or I shouldn't talk to my kids this way. And I've called them out pretty straightforward. I mean, there was one guy who talked about at his old job, he would, at the end of the day, the boss and all the crew would go buy a 6-pack of beer and sit and drink it before they went home. And I said, what a horrible dad you are. He looked at me like, I'm a good dad. I said, maybe now. I said, do you think that your kids didn't know you were coming home with beer on your breath every day? You were giving them permission as adults to do exactly what you were doing. And he just kind of looked at me. He's like, no one ever said that to me. No one told me that I was setting an example right now for what I'm doing in the future. And so would it be different? I would probably be that person that very nicely works, dances around the bush to make the point, but I don't do that anymore. It's straightforward. people will live up to what you expect of them. And if you tell them the expectations, then you can go back and say, I told you this and you did not do it. So let's talk through it about why you chose not to and what we're going to do to resolve it, because it's not acceptable in my world. And oftentimes, actually, there's another situation that I've just recently talked to someone. People will treat you the way you allow them to treat you. And when Keith Jr. was going through his issues, I told him, here's the rules. You're not going to yell at me. You're not going to use foul language, and you're not going to degrade your dad. And if you do, I will turn and walk away, or I will hang up the phone. It only takes once. And they understand, but you have to live what you believe and do what you're going to do, or do what you say you're going to do and say what you're going to do. It is a full circle. You can't say, it's like telling your kid, don't do that or you're not going to get a treat. And then 5 minutes later, you give them a treat. They've learned nothing. And really, employees are grown kids that now you're not just mothering in your house, you're mothering your business. And
at
so
much
that's
higher costs in some cases, right? Like at
Yes.
much higher risks and costs.
yes.
I want to lean into the word that you just used somewhere in that section there, trust. I want you to share your theory on trust.
Trust comes free once. And once you lose it with me, you have to work like all get out to get it back, and you may never. So if you want me to trust you, then don't break my trust, because I will make you work very hard and you may never get it back. And that's what all my guys do. We have money, we have keys, we have all kinds of things sitting around here. But I live my life with trust. We have cars that are unlocked. We have keys in cars. My purse is very accessible to most people. But they know if they cross my line, I will be their worst enemy. They will pay the cost. And that is just a line that I have always drawn, even when I was younger. If I tell you I'm going to do it, I will do it. And don't question me. That comes from my mom.
Do you feel like you had that with Keith Jr.? I'm interested in this question because of personal reasons, because I look at the man that I see today in Keith Jr., and I have to think that there were times where that trust was violated. Did you make him work extra hard to get it back?
Yes, he actually did. And the cool thing about the relationship with him is that he knows where his boundaries are. There are boundaries that he broke that I'm willing to forgive him, because when I tell you I forgive you, I forgive you. I'm not going to recount that. I'm not going to keep living in that. Does it mean the relationship, at moments that those emotions come flowing up? Absolutely. But I have to remind myself that I've forgiven and I'm moving on, and I do that. But he put safeguards into his world of, you know what? Because I know where I broke your trust, I'm going to make sure I work extra hard to communicate in those areas so that you know I'm not doing X, Y, or Z. You know, for example, he had full access to our bank accounts. He still has full access to our bank accounts, but he chooses not to access them. He does nothing with them. He will only go through me and ask permission and tell me what's going on. So it's those kind of things that he set his own safeguards, because he realized how deeply he had cut into that.
Yeah. I asked that because I have to believe that effort, you know, that he has put forth to, like, you know, put those safeguards in place has been massive growth for him. Right. And, you know, and that balance of, like, you setting boundaries, them being valid, and then actually, to your point, like, making them earn it back to some degree, whether that's self-imposed on their part or, you know, the expectation. You know, you're one of those people, your husband and I were laughing about this the other day. Like, you're one of those people that, like, this woman is the sweetest woman in the world, but people just undoubtedly fear her in some way because they know there's just a set of expectations that are not to be violated. And I admire that so much about you, is that, there is no iron fist. It's just a unspoken set of rules. In some cases, they're probably spoken right after somebody violates the trust, but just an expectation of a higher level of everybody that, to your point, people rise to that occasion. The employees that you have perform better for you than they probably would for any other company they work for. And that's you, your husband, your son, like everybody contributes to that higher expectation. But from my seat, you are an incredibly steady hand in that organization that really sets that tone. And I think it's in such a special way. There's something about that dynamic of the female energy, the female leadership power of, having that expectation. No one wants to let you down. Right. And that comes with a lot of respect. It's all very unique, right? The relationships that we have with people are unique. And when people look to you in that way, I think it's definitely a different type of expectation that people have. Would you agree with that from where you sit?
Yeah, I do, but I don't think it's unattainable for others. It's just that I decided how I'm going to be treated. And I'm going to treat you the very same way I expect you to treat me. And I will give you I will step up to the same expectations that people give me. But people don't. Our world has made everybody live in fear of putting boundaries or lines. Just because I don't think something is right doesn't mean that I'm not going to like you because you do it, but I'm not going to allow you to do it around me. I don't know that I've really ever told our guys not to use foul language around me, because I don't appreciate it. I think it's unnecessary. But if they happen to use a word, they will immediately apologize. I'm so sorry I said that. And I'm like, I appreciate that. You're forgiven. But I also understand that no one's called them to that higher ground to say, you know what, you can sound a lot more intelligent and a lot more worthy if you choose a different word. And it's really a matter of choosing how you want to be treated. I always have called it, in my own mind, I've always called it my Cinderella world. I've built my own world of how I want people to treat me and how I want to be treated, and how I want to treat others. And that's how I work really hard at keeping those boundaries and making sure people treat me in that manner.
That's awesome. So I want to go all the way back to the beginning of business. So if we go back to, 39 years ago, and you kind of alluded to it, you started a business basically in hopes of, being able to financially support a family, a big family. And what was that like back then? Kind of how did that progression go over the first handful of decades, we'll say, in business?
Lots of struggles. Keith is a great worker. He always was very motivated to work. Well, to start out with, I ran a ticker tape machine for a stock brokerage firm when we got married. I made really good money, but I knew, because I was raised with a stay-at-home mom, I wanted to stay at home when I had kids. And Keith and I had talked about that, and that was very important to both of us because we didn't want someone else influencing our kids in their beliefs and core values of knowing who they are and who they're valued, and all the things that the world throws in there. And so we had agreed that I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. Well, by the grace of God, I had manipulated the system that I ended up with about 6 months of paid maternity leave. And so at that point, Keith was able to start his own business, and we struggled through. I mean, there was Keith Jr.'s first birthday. I don't know whether Keith told you this, but right after Keith Jr.'s first birthday, he was burned. His upper body, he was in the burn center. So he was our only sole source of income. And what we learned more than anything is that God will provide. He may not provide in our time and our comfort, but we never went without rent. We never went without food. We never went without anything that we've ever needed. And that's kind of what kept us going, is it's like, God really does provide. And there's times when we had literally $2 to our name, enough money to put in the gas tank to drive to church. It's like, okay, Lord, you got to get us here. And somewhere money would come in, we'd have enough gas money and keep struggling and keep going. And so I always learned, because my dad was self-employed, I always learned that you always have your cupboards and fridges full, so that you weren't worried about feeding your kids. You were just really worried about paying the utility bills. And there's times when our power was turned off because we just didn't have enough money, and we made it through. But there were lots of hard, long times. He worked a lot at the beach, and I had the kids at home. And also in those times, we had a lot of IRS audits, always our favorite, that we really worked through. That they said all of Keith's out of town trips were just vacations. I'm like, yeah, right. but it's the struggles that pull you together. And I think that's what bonded in knowing that if all the rest of the world failed, we still had each other, and we still knew that God was going to provide for us as a family and together. And we weren't going to waver in who we are or what our beliefs were or compromise on any of it. We've always remained faithful to our core values and morals and not changed them. And they were hard. There were lots of hard years. And then as the kids grew up and we got busy through life, another very solid set of advice that Keith got when the boys were young, because we had 4 boys before we had Hannah, is Dad always puts the kids to bed, especially with the stay-at-home mom, because the stay-at-home mom has them all day long and they manipulate Mom when it's bedtime. So he was always, regardless of how hard the days were or how long the days were, if he was at home, he is the one who was always put the kids to bed. And our kids have always slept great. And I appreciated that so much, because I had a few minutes to myself to just pause and not have someone needing something. But in that, we became a team. In all those hard things, we became a team and knew that we could depend upon each other and trust each other to keep going. And so lots of years, lots of cars, never had the best of anything, but we had what we needed. And part of that is being contented with where you're at, because you know it was provided for you, but knowing that there's still more and still more to do and more to work towards. And after Caleb, our youngest, graduated, I had all the time in the world. So why not jump into the business more? And so, and since that time, we've really grown. I mean, it's been amazing growth, so much so that it's hard to keep up. And, we're now at 30 plus employees, and we never thought that would happen. But they're 30 plus extended kids is what they are. So
how many years ago was that when Caleb graduated?
He graduated, oh my goodness, he just turned 26, so 8 years ago.
Got it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I was having the same conversation with Keith Sr. about just, my observations over the last 4 years, I guess. It's crazy. I love hearing these stories because it's like, so much has gone so fast for you guys, right?
Yes.
And I believe, and I want to get your perspective on this, I believe that the only way that things can really go fast for anybody, whether it's, the way that a business grows or the way that a business turns around, and for that to be sustainable, which it has been for you guys, and the growth has been explosive, but also sustainable, right? Just continuous, is for that to be built on a solid foundation. And so I'm interested to get your perspective on this. the business operated on the same set of values the whole time, right? So it was like a
Yes.
very similar foundation, a very similar set of values. What was it that clicked? What was it from your position? Because you also had, kind of an outside looking in position to some degree, or at least more than everybody else. And then also inside the business, kind of knowing everything that's going on. What do you think it was? What was the big shift?
The big shift of moving and growing?
Yes.
Integrity. People know who we are. They know that if we say we're going to do something, we're going to do it. And if we're not going to be able to show up, we're going to let them know. We're going to work in every fashion we can to make sure that we do what we say we're going to do, and that there's a relationship. It's not just I'm coming to work for you. I'm coming to work with you. I want to make sure that you're as much a part of this experience as we are, and that every person is valued. And I don't know. I think that's really what it comes down to for me, is that we have always functioned on integrity and trust. And that's unusual in this world.
Yeah.
And
eventually it always repays, right? Like it always comes around, right? No matter what. I've felt that in my own business and life. Sometimes, it's human nature to think like, man, I keep doing right, but things aren't going right. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like you start to doubt yourself to some degree, or like question, like, why are these other people who are not, necessarily doing it the right way? Why are they winning and I'm losing? And then, at some point that always turns, and it's, I believe that it's faith and values and the foundation that you have as a person, and your faith, that guides you through those times of doubting yourself, right? Or doubting what's happening around you. The dynamic of family business is an interesting one. Right? So, what is that like, working with your husband, working with your son? Is it always just pleasant and hunky dory, or?
Oh, absolutely. Peaches and cream all the time. I know no different, because my dad was self-employed, and he always, I remember days that I'd ride with him in the truck and we'd just go hang out while he worked, and I'd look at the books and clean his car out and, do all things because I wanted to be with him. I mean, that wasn't very often, because, girls weren't supposed to be with their dads. They're supposed to be with their moms, but I have remembrances of those. But family business without full trust, I don't know that it would work. And part of that is humility, to know that your way isn't always the right way. It might be your opinion, but it doesn't mean it's right, or it's the only opinion that's right. There's a lot of just respecting and know where our lanes are, staying in our own shipping lane when time is appropriate. Is that I can have opinions about what goes on in operations, but it doesn't mean I have full knowledge, because that's where Keith Jr. is. And with our sales and marketing, I can have opinions there, but that's not my lane either. I don't function in it. I don't see the day-to-day in and outs of it. And so I have to trust Keith Jr. and Keith Sr. and know that they're doing the very best with the tools that they have, the same as they have to trust me with the tools that I have. And without full trust with one another, and always giving them the benefit of the doubt, our minds are trained to not think the best of other people. And we have to take a step back and realize that they may have said something in a certain way that offended me or that I didn't like, but the heart was not thinking that. They just didn't know how to communicate and verbalize that well. So it's a lot of it just 100% complete trust, and knowing that we're all looking out for each other.
What is your favorite thing about business today? When you look at the business from the outside, or what you do every day, what's your favorite part of it?
Well, it's not what I do every day, that's for sure. It's actually, it's the people, just seeing how their lives have changed and how we have one person who came in at 27, had never had a job. He only played video games in his mom's basement and would barely make eye contact to ask for an application. And now he is an amazing employee. He's taking leadership, he's moving forward. And to watch the changes in people when they see that they're valued and that they have something worth sharing and that they can take pride in what they've done and know that they have those abilities to grow and make decisions that no one's ever trusted them with. One guy, when we gave him keys to a car, he goes, but I'm a felon, right? I said, okay, that was a bad decision then. It doesn't mean that you're going to make a bad decision forward. And I'm going to choose to trust you to make the right decision. So if there's a problem, you can let me know. But I can tell you, if you cross that line, I will be your worst enemy. So you just know that. But I'm going to choose to trust you. So you can make that decision. And he's like, really? My parents don't even trust me. And I said, it's a choice I'm going to make. I'm not going to look at your past. I'm going to look at who you are today and trust that you want to move forward and make the right decision, the next right decision. And to see the changes in all of their lives, to watch their families grow, to watch their marriages stay together instead of taking the easy road of splitting up, because we've taken the time to talk with them about what life would be after they've decided to split up, what it would not just be for them, but for their kids and the bigger picture. Because so often our world doesn't think about the bigger picture. If I do this today, how is it going to affect me over here? And they just don't think about that. They just, more often than not, our world thinks about right here, right today, the disposable things that are around me. And if you're not benefiting me today, why do I want you around tomorrow? Well, maybe you're helping form some of those decisions so that I can make better decisions later. Maybe you're helping me gain strength and standing up and figuring out what I believe in and what is important to me. And so, yeah, that's my favorite thing, is just watching the changes in lives and how they've grown and gained their own value. And in fact, we invited someone to come live in our house because I wanted them to know their value. My goal was, God brought you on this earth for a reason, and I want you to know your value. And they were just surprised. They looked at me and said, why would you do that? Why would you trust that? And I said, who am I to make that decision that you're not worthy of trust or that you're not valued? That's for God to decide, not me. So
Amazing. It's truly the definition of transforming lives one shovel at a time. And so we talked about, people's personal growth. Let's talk about the growth of the company, right? Over the last, let's just say, handful of years, 5-6 years, what that has looked like, and what has that been to experience, right? Like, it's so much different, right? Running a business that's, to some degree controllable within your own hands, like you can almost influence a lot of it, right? Versus now,
yes.
It takes a lot of hands to be able to pull that off. What has that been like to watch and experience and be part of, and how is it different from 5 or 6 years ago to today?
Well, I can tell you that for me, learning to let go of my children was easier than learning to let go of my business, because I know the values that I've instilled in my kids, and I know that they know the right direction and where to seek the right answers. And when it comes to employees, I know the things that I've taught them since I've been in their sphere of influence. And I know that they know where my values are, but that doesn't mean they're always going to operate in them. And going from, we've always had our business at our house because that's the only way I could be a part of it with raising kids and all that kind of stuff. And we're to the point that actually this week I was looking going, any bigger, it's not going to be here. In fact, it probably shouldn't be here now because there's so much that goes into it in every aspect, and everybody's everywhere, and there's just a lot. And once you get to too much, it's just too much. No amount is too much more. It's always too much. And it keeps us busy, and every aspect, and this, every decision you make in business affects 20 other decisions. And it's not like, oh, I can just decide to do this today. But it's like, okay, if I do this today, then it means I can't do that. And then I need to move this over here and rearrange 20 things instead of just 2 things. And, the business has basically about doubled every year for the last 6 years. And, which, thank you, Jesus. It is entirely his that he's done that. But because of that, we also choose, it hasn't grown just because of us and who we are. It's grown because our guys are out there working diligently. They're following the systems. They're doing what they need to do. So we choose to bonus our guys. And they're kind of taken back by that a little bit, that we tell them we will give you 1% of the gross, 1% of the gross, so that your value, that that we know it's not just us doing this, that you're the hands and feet on the ground, and you're the ones doing the work. And we want you to be valued, because without you, K&L doesn't exist. I mean, it does. It's Keith and I, but they're the ones who are doing the bigger part of the work as far as the hands-on. And yeah, there's a lot of meetings and a lot of consultation that goes on behind the scenes. But although every person is replaceable, not every dynamic is replaceable, which is why we want to value our crew, because we know the dynamic, we know what the strengths and weaknesses of everybody are, and how to best encourage and influence them to continue to be the best version of them they can be. And it's gone from me being able to work a couple hours a night if I want, I can always catch up on the weekend, to I work a lot of days every day, a lot of hours every day. Most of the time it's at least 12 to 14 that I'm in the office catching up on paperwork, on things that need, registered and redone and communicated and taken care of, that no one else can do but me, because I'm the holder of the key, the keeper of the gate.
Yeah.
And so it gets tiring, but I wouldn't change it for the world. And all of our kids know it, and our grandkids, our granddaughters, when they see a K&L, it's like, oh, that's Mimi and Papa. But it doesn't matter if it's in the alphabet. To them, K&L is Mimi and Papa. And that's what they know. And they know that they're always invited to any part of it. Our office doors have been open doors, not just to our employees, but to my family and our grandkids and our employees' families, that they are always welcome anytime to drop by a job site or the office, just to come say hi and visit and be part of the family, because we love to see them all.
I remember you telling me that the first time I met you in person was when the grandchildren call, if they want to see me, they're going to see me. No matter what time of day it is, there's never a no. They are always welcome. and that left an imprint on me that I'll never forget. And it's just so obvious to anybody that spends time around your business, how that works, and just the values that are intertwined in there. And you've been saying it throughout the whole conversation here, but it really is, every person's treated that way, right? If you have something you want to talk about, that is always open. And so what's next? What's in the future for K&L?
Oh my goodness. I don't even know. I know that I feel like the Lord is just telling us, hold on, I've got something. And I'm just holding on for the ride to see what's next, because we have been blessed and we are moving forward, and we're trying to be faithful in what we do and take care of the gifts that we've been given, so that we can take care of more, and not just for us, but for others. And we would love to spend time in coaching people and talking with them, because people is who our heart is. And although I'm an introvert and Keith is an extrovert, he much more displays that in large groups. And I'm much more of a one-on-one, let's sit down and talk and have a conversation, because you get me in a big room and I will sit at one table and be quiet. Although I have learned to mingle a little.
I was going to say, I don't know if that's always true or not, because I've seen you work a room pretty good. And I think it's about that room feeling, feeling close to you, right? Like when you feel welcome and close to people and you get to know people, man, you work a room better than most.
Because I know them. I know them. They're of value. And not that they're not of value because I know them, but because they know who I am, and there's a trust. And the timidity comes for me when I'm not sure who you are and how you're going to approach me, because I don't like that surprise factor, because I don't think fast in those situations, because I get emotional. And so that's why I'm guarded. But if I know you and I've been introduced to you, the next time I see you, our motto at our house is, you are a guest once. The next time you come, you know where the fridge is, you know where the food is, you know where the bathrooms and bedrooms are, and you know where the key is. You're no longer a guest after you've been here once.
That's
and that goes for everybody. And we've loved having some of the guys from TCS. We have our open door policy of, if you want to come shadow us and be here, we will give you a place to stay and I will cook you meals, but come be here.
And the meals are phenomenal, by the way.
Oh, thank you. but we love people, and we love relationships with people and getting to know them and speaking into their lives, because we want them to know they're valued, regardless of how they feel in that big bad world out there. They don't need to always be the dragon slayers. Sometimes they can come in for a respite.
Yeah. All right. So the hardest question of the hour, the K&L one's easy, but what's in the future for you? Because I think, from my perspective, and why I was so excited to be able to have this conversation, I think you know how I feel about you, but you're a special person, and so many people need you in their lives. And so I'm interested to see, what you see in your future, right? Take everything else away. And, when you look forward 10 years from now, what is the impact that you want to make, and what would make you feel most fulfilled in your life?
Oh, that's a hard question. It's actually, it's harder than you really think, because everyone I meet, who am I? I am a wife first. I am a mom second. I am a grandma third. And then I am in our business. Those are my priorities. So what do I see most for me is supporting my husband in the avenues that he wants to grow in. But second of all, I would really love to encourage the spouses and partners, because oftentimes they think they're just in the shadow, and they're the most important factor in their spouse's success, in their significant other's success. Because if you're falling apart behind the scenes, you're not going to be able to display that very long in the forefront. And that's one of those things that I've thought a lot. You're actually the one who caused me to ponder upon that in one of the conversations we had about the fact that you need to encourage those spouses. And it's true, because you feel like you're just in the background. But I think that's the one thing that has, in a lot of ways, helped Keith and Keith Jr. grow and get their perspective, because they know that I'm back here supporting them and I fully trust their decision. And I'm not going to doubt them or put them down if something doesn't go right. But I'm there to cheer them on, and I'm there to hold on to them when they're falling as well. And that's something that's not encouraged in our world, is that you don't talk about your failures or present anything that you've done wrong that hasn't been successful. We've had a lot of failures. We've had a lot of things go wrong. We've lost a lot of money in a lot of different areas. But I don't hold that against my spouse. I don't hold that against my son. We just move forward and we go, okay, it's only a problem if you don't learn from it and grow from it. It's only a mistake if you haven't pulled something from it to make it positive. And I would love to see marriages blossom in the construction world instead of fail, because it's a tendency for the construction industry, for the guys to be workaholics because they feel like they have to do that. And in the workaholics, the women or their spouses feel insignificant, when they can be a significant part of that as long as they pour into it. And there's no one out there doing that.
Well, there
and
is.
Now I told you something.
Now there is. Yeah.
Well, hopefully. I actually have a plan in my head, but I'm not speaking it to you because then I'm responsible to make it happen. And
Well, I had a conversation today with somebody else that's stepping in to help. I think you know who she is, but I won't put her on blast on the podcast here. But she's excited, and I think there's so much there to unpack, and it takes all of this wrapped together to really not just create success, but to create fulfillment. A total package, right? It's like it takes every different employee, every different support system, it takes all of that to get it right. And I think people need they need to be given permission to step into what it is that they're great at, and not feel that need, to your point of saying, like, the world out there is, sometimes so tough in the comparison, and like, trying to model what somebody else is doing, when all we really need to do is step into the gifts that God planted in each of us, to be able to be the best version of us. And I think you're just such an amazing example of that. So, from me, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be a part of your family, welcoming me into your home, for having an incredible influence on me yourself, but also supporting two men that are extremely important to me. I sit here and listen to you talk about the story, and it truly makes me emotional because, your son is my best friend, and your husband is a man that I call when I'm in the biggest of troubles, right? And so are you, right? We've had some conversations when I'm uncertain of things, and it's just awesome to be a small piece of your lives. And you guys have made a massive impact on me spiritually, from a family perspective. Welcoming you into my house is an honor and a privilege, and watching you play with my children. And I am excited to see what's ahead for you, because I got some plans for you. I know you got some plans, but I've got some ideas of things that I think are just massive changes. And to your point, to watch those marriages blossom in construction and to be able to tell those stories. Now we have the tools with video and all the different things to be able to do things like this that really do make a difference. And so I'm grateful for the time that you took out of your day to do this. I'm grateful for the love and care that you give to me and my wife and my children. and just grateful to have you guys and you in my life. So thank you.
You're welcome. And it's reciprocal. You've pushed me in ways to grow. Being the youngest girl, I didn't always have confidence to be who I am. I always learned how to sink back and just be the little sister and do as I was told. So stepping into some of these things pushes me, because it's like, oh, I have to be the big girl. I have to do things I don't want to do. I can't just let others do them. And so I've appreciated the push. It has caused growth in me, and I love your kids and your wife to death. And it's been a great relationship. And
Likewise, yeah, I couldn't agree more. So final thoughts. What advice do you have for people out there that might be struggling personally, struggling in business, struggling in some point of their life? You know, we've all been there. What advice would you give to people that might be in that spot right now?
Know your value. Every single person, I've referred to it through this whole conversation, every single person has value, but until you stop to look at it, you know, a diamond doesn't come out polished and sparkly. You have to buff it. You have to clean it. You have to grind some of the bad stuff off. But we all have it. We all do the same things every day. There is no one gifted any more than the next person. And every person was created in God's image. Seek that image. The world tells us not to. But that's the only way you're going to see your true value, is figuring out who God made you to be and what your specific gifts are. He valued you enough to create you, and you have to figure out how to let him lead you forward. So,
amen. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Well, thank you for doing this. I know it was outside of your comfort zone, so I'm pushing and pulling every way that I can to make it happen. But thank you. I know that all of you out there listening and watching got tremendous value out of this, tremendous perspective, and that's why we're here, bringing you people that are really making a difference in the world, and Mrs. Lillian Callaway is most definitely doing that. If you guys aren't connected with Lillian, if she'll accept your friend request, you should definitely try. But you can connect with Lillian through her own personal profiles or K&L Industries on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere you can find. K&L is easy to find. I know you guys found value in this, so please share it out. Send it to your friends. Send it to somebody that needs to hear this message, and that's why we're here. Until next time, this was another episode of Powerful Perspectives. Thank you guys for tuning in. I love you guys, and we'll see you again soon.
It is ultimately important for you to look at your goals, truly what you want to do in your life, and then look at the people who you spend the most time with in your life and figure out if that lines up.